I don't see it. Okay. Welcome to the I'm About to Kill Rufus edition of the Bet the Process podcast. Rufus needed to restart his VIC 20, which took like another 15 minutes and cut into the valuable time where we provide amazing content to you guys. We're joined by Peter Jennings, not the news anchor, not the Jeopardy star. We should actually probably pay tribute to Alex Trebek for a minute. Very sad.
Silence.
Moment of silence. We don't have a moment, so maybe a second of silence. There we go.
And can we pay tribute to the late Peter Jennings also?
Did he die also?
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
Okay. Oh, well, I mean, I've had a lot of time to get over that one, apparently. Peter, you're joining us for the let's just hop right into the Masters talk, because that's what we're here for. So the big theme, or I guess the big thing that everyone's talking about is Bryson, right? Like, Bryson is the favorite. Bryson has beaten golf, solved golf. The course they're trying to lay out in a way that maybe takes that advantage away. What do you guys think? Should he be the odds-on favorite, or is that being overblown?
It's hard to predict. I mean, we haven't really seen someone attack the golf course this way. Certainly would love to hear Rufus's opinion, but yeah, you saw him on the range, over 200 ball speed, and on ESPN they're talking about the magic number of carrying it over 320, which can give him some lines and some wider landing areas. But there's a lot of really good golfers out there. Jon Rahm made arguably the best hole-in-one I've ever seen today. That's his second hole-in-one in practice rounds. I'd be curious to think, I'll kick it to Rufus on this. Do you think there's any predictive value in Jon Rahm making 2 hole-in-ones in practice rounds? Like
2 hole-in-ones this week.
Feeling good, like something, maybe this is my week. Does that matter at all?
No, I feel like it's like when I hit well on the range, like I'm not going to hit well on the course. It's like all my good luck is gone, right?
This is like what Trump says, right? The reason Trump doesn't exercise is because he thinks the body only has so much energy in it. He doesn't want to take away from the battery he has, right?
The battery theory. Yeah, he doesn't want to drain his batteries.
Since you brought up personal golf, sorry, go ahead.
No, so Bryson is interesting because he basically breaks my model. Like, I don't think I can fit him to the course just because, if I'm going hole by hole and saying, okay, this is on this hole, like distance matters X amount. It's within this range that people have been at and distance in that hole in the past. If he's hitting it over, like if a bunker that nobody else is getting it to, or that everybody else is having to contend with, for example, and maybe lay up in front of, and he's getting it over that, and the fairway is way wider after, like my fit for that hole is not going to be right at all. And so, I mean, it took a lot of humility, Jeff, to say, you know what? I don't know with Bryson. And so I think you're not going to get involved with him at all. I'm pretty neutral. I think I'm maybe a slight fade. The thing is, I have to take a stance in some way because it shapes my outrights in general. Like if I made Bryson 19%, which somebody that I know that bets for a living literally has him at 19%. I know somebody else that has him at like 5%. So that also bets for a living. So, but the difference there is 14%, and that affects all your other outright and top 5, top 10, top 20 probabilities. So what I did basically was I went through, I eliminated the Tour Championship for him for off the tee, because I think on the driving holes there he hit irons. And I eliminated the Heritage for driving because the Heritage is not at all like Augusta National, and there's not much to gain from driving. And he obviously was not hitting a lot of drivers there. And then I even boosted his distance a little bit more. And honestly, I massaged the numbers a little bit. I was like, I gave him a little bit of a bump and just sort of saw where it landed. And, I have him sort of at about 12.7 to 1, which I feel like is fairly reasonable. It's not 6.5 to 1 where the market is. But one thing I find really interesting is that Bryson is the favorite in outrights. Clearly, there's a lot of, but if you look at
hold on for 1 second. So if you had it at 12 or something to 1, is he your favorite?
No, my favorite's DJ.
Got it.
My
What do you
favorite-
price DJ at?
Oh, probably too high, if I'm being honest. Let me see. Plus 773.
Got it. How about
Um,
Rombo? What do you price Rombo at?
Plus 985. But what's interesting is that is the dichotomy you're seeing in Bryson, like relative to guys like especially McIlroy. McIlroy's favored over Bryson in matchups, yet Bryson is the favorite for outrights. And part of that you're like, well, that's one is a two-way market, one isn't. But I'm actually pulling up Betfair right now to see the liquidity there. I mean, there's some significant liquidity behind Bryson on both sides, and behind Rory for that matter. So it is a two-way market there, but the matchup number still has Rory a substantial favorite over Bryson. So I guess I want to ask you, what do you guys make of that?
That's the range of outcomes for the golfers, right? I mean, Bryson, if we look at his range of outcomes, he's actually missed some cuts and had some, bad rounds. Whereas Rory, who's been disappointing during the COVID swing, he hasn't missed a cut during the COVID swing. And historically, his range of outcomes have been more narrow. And Bryson is just kind of harder to predict. And I think that speaks to, would it surprise me if he won by 3 or 4 strokes? Not really. Would it surprise me if he really underperformed? I think there's a wider range of outcomes, although Rory's been volatile too. So I would think that has a large part to do with it. Like Rahm's been really consistent. DJ's been a little more inconsistent. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think it's the variance, right? That like you're saying, the range of outcomes and the variance, and ultimately also it's because one market is not two-sided and the other one is, right? I mean, ultimately
they both are in this case. I'm looking at Betfair.
Oh, okay.
So there's volume on both sides regarding for Bryson. I'm seeing
Bryson for
So I'm seeing so laying on the lay side, there's 7,300 at 9.2 and 19,000 at 9.4. On backing, there's 24,000 at 9. So wow. I mean, there's volume on both sides there. I mean, Rory's got basically the bid and ask is 21,000 and 18,000 the other side. I mean, there's volume in the 5 figures on basically all the favorites.
So Rory could do the same thing. I think this is an interesting one that's unknown as well. We saw Rory on the range hitting low 190s ball speed. He's always been basically the best driver of the golf ball, but hasn't tried to do what Bryson's doing. Now he's seeing Bryson have success. I think Rory's got mid 190s in the tank, and he hits the ball really high, which I think is a big factor for Bryson too. Like Cameron Champ is really long, but he hits those kind of low cut bullets, whereas Bryson launches it super high. And so does Rory. Both those guys are near the top in terms of carry. So I think that's interesting.
Do you think Champ can hit a higher ball flight if he wants? Because I know I saw the thing. I think it was one of those practice rounds where they had I think Sean Foley was walking around and they interviewed him and he was talking about Champ and he said like basically that hitting it low and having more run takes more trouble out of play or something like that. Do you think Champ? Maybe you don't know, but do you think Champ might say for this? Like, do you think he has a high ball flight in reserve if he wants, or is that something that a player can kind of manipulate?
I would think he can do it. Now, how comfortable is he and how consistent is he? I have no idea. I mean, it was remarkable. I was at the Waste Management down in Arizona, and this was when Champ was kind of making his appearance, and all the guys were on the range, including JT, Bubba. And the range was like, I don't know, 330, 340 yards long, maybe a little bit longer. Champ was like the only guy. You could actually see him hitting it out of the range. I mean, remember, he was a standard deviation longer than everyone else before Bryson was doing what he's doing.
Well, and the thing is, it's not like Bryson's much longer than him at all.
Yeah.
It's just that Bryson hits the higher ball flight and
higher carry.
Bryson is, and Bryson is a better all-around player than Cameron Champ, to be fair.
Okay, so you guys are golf savants. Okay, what you've been watching golf, playing. Rufus has been welching on golf bets, that kind of thing. Have we seen any of these big names recently? Because normally going into the Masters, there's quite a bit of data, and I know that many of the models that we've talked about take recency or recent form, that is a pretty reasonable indicator of how you're going to do. How do you guys deal with that going into this, where people haven't really been playing as much, right? Or at least not as far as we know.
I mean, Bryson hasn't played since the Shriners, which he finished tied for 8th, which was his last event after the U.S. Open.
When was that?
That was in October. I mean, that was like 4 to 5 weeks ago. So yeah,
I mean, isn't that layoff kind of a big deal potentially? And then like, what are the layoffs of some of the other top favorites?
Well, DJ played last week and played really well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's why DJ's so high, a bit, because we know a lot more about, we know where his form is a little bit. Although with DJ, to be honest with DJ, you never really know, because he can always pull out an 80 at any point or a 62. But
playing great, then got COVID, so we didn't know, and then he played great last week. I mean, we got DJ, Matsuyama, and Koepka all played really well. Koepka charged specifically on the weekend, which makes the top of the board really interesting. And we've seen those guys. A lot of them played Shadow Creek, which people are talking about. Jeff, you've played Shadow Creek.
I have.
They're not what'd well. You shoot? Not what'd well. You shoot? Was it how many digits was it?
4 digits.
Well done.
No, I honestly, it was like right when I first started kind of playing again. I hadn't been playing very much, so I didn't play particularly well. Also, it's Vegas, so playing morning golf in Vegas, you don't play particularly well. I'm actually playing a course tomorrow called Mayakama, so that'll be a nice course to play up in the Mayakama Mountains.
I've never heard of that. I feel like left out here. Is that a really nice course?
Yeah, it's a nice course. It's one of the nicest courses in Northern California, probably. Like certainly north of San Francisco. Anyway, so what about like Rory? When's the last? Did he play at Shadow Creek?
Yeah, Rory, so a lot of the guys played at Shadow Creek, and Rory. So this is what I feel like Rory's been doing, and Rufus would know better with the data. But Rory goes out. He's shown flashes of like great golf, hitting the ball great, really awesome off the tee, goes low, and he just has these stretches. I mean, at Shadow Creek, he had like a 6-hole stretch where he went 6 over, and it was part of the easy part of the course.
Oh, that was the end. I remember because I lost me a bunch of money.
Yeah,
I had him matched up against Rahm. Yeah, he was like up 6 strokes on Rahm with like 7 holes to go, and he went like double bogey to end.
Easy short par 5.
And missed like he missed like a 4-footer or something. He 3.
Well, I mean, do you have a theory, Jennings, on what's going on with him?
Well, Rory's talked about it. He's said it's been troublesome for him with the fans, and this is another. I know we're process oriented.
So he's like literally not focused. He's not. You think he's not
got the
focused?
fans of him. He's got the baby, and then the other element for Rory. Do you guys give any weight to this? Because this is the narrative that everyone's talking about. Rory, the one major he's missing is the Masters, and he tries too hard for the Masters. So that's why he doesn't perform at the Masters, even though in theory it's the best course for him. I think that's mostly noise.
But like that, what you just said was like so inconsistent, right? And I'm not saying that you believe this, but
no, I don't believe it at all. That's what people say. It's hilarious.
No, but the two narratives that you said are that because of the fans, no fans there, he can't focus. But yet in something that he should be so focused on, he's focusing too hard and he can't play well. So maybe this is like the perfect storm of like, the fans there make it easier for him to relax, but the fact that it's the Masters makes it easier for him to focus. And I think we just decided that Rory's going to win this thing.
I've already decided that.
Did you really?
No, I don't know.
Going. He brought his wife and baby to the event. I mean, I don't know.
Well, so I opened up the odds on like Sunday night or something like that. And I was about to just hammer Rahm and McIlroy because I figured that would be what Rufus did. And I think they were like both over. They're in like the 12, 11 to 1 range. And now they're in the 855 and plus 901. So I'm assuming, Rufus, that you hit one, if not both of these guys.
I did. I think I hit Rory more than I hit Rahm. But it's weird.
Like Rory's smaller than Rahm. I just wouldn't want to hit Rahm. He's a big Spaniard.
He's a big dude.
Yeah. What did you hit those guys at? What price did you hit them at?
I think I hit Rahm at like plus 1050. First off, and Rory like 14 to 1 ish. But like, I think first off, there's all these people out there like doing victory laps on betting DeChambeau at like 28 to 1 and whatever else. And I think that's one thing I don't do. I don't bet master stuff before, like ahead of ahead of time, which I feel like there probably is a lot of value if you do that. But
why do you think that Chris continues to open these golfers that they know you're going to hammer higher than like where you still see value? I mean, you see value on the same guys every week.
Jeff, especially with outrights, I'm a small potato in the market. I mean, they're taking, like, this is the Masters. They're definitely worried about their liability, I'm sure. I mean, why do you think Bryson is priced at like plus 650 in some places or whatever he is? I mean, it's because
he's broken golf.
He's getting right. Well, it's because he's getting bet everywhere. I mean,
he's broken golf, Rufus. I don't know if you paid attention.
I was talking to Jeff Sherman.
He wears a fedora, and
he's going to be wearing a DraftKings hat. Did you guys see that? There's a big billboard.
Oh, yeah.
Bryson and DraftKings, and that, to me, okay, just to transition a little bit, the coolest thing about the Masters is it's the best sweat in all of sports by a mile.
Wait, why is that? Given the fact that there's never any comebacks on Sunday, the winner has come from the last two groups almost like every year.
You can watch every shot of all the golfers. So the biggest sweat for me in DFS is on Fridays when I'm sweating guys making the cut. You can watch any golfer hit every shot. The coverage is absolutely amazing, and the markets for this are incredible. I mean, golf has really gone all in on sports betting. Bryson's now sponsored. He's going to be wearing a DraftKings hat. The DraftKings $4,500 tournament sold out on Tuesday. I mean, wow. There is a ton
That's today.
Of today, yeah.
Already
sold out. I mean, DraftKings could have been a way bigger contest.
Why don't they
Peter,
run a second one?
You're a big DFS guy. How much will you guys have in play from a DFS perspective going into the Masters?
It's always the debate. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be big. We'll be six figures, but it won't be. We'll see. We'll see what some of the action.
Like six figures is a wide range, right? And I assume that doesn't include the decimal
low
points.
Low six figures.
Right.
Do you think that are there more positive EV opportunities for the Masters than other events, or is it just essentially a chance to get more money down?
I think it's a chance to get more money down more so than it's a bigger edge. There's certainly more fish in the ecosystem, but the pricing is super soft, so you can play kind of star-studded lineups. So
how many fish are paying $4,500 per entry though?
Yeah, the $4,500 one for entry. That's so. Jeff, this is where game theory gets really interesting. That $4,500 tournament on DraftKings, $2 million total prize pool, $1 million to first. $1 million to first, $125K to second. That's a pretty sharp decline. So you have to play to win. That's the only option.
So what's your approach there? Do you treat it? I mean, how many people are in it?
500.
500. Okay, so it's a tournament. So is it basically go for the guys that are not chalk? Or, I mean, without giving too much away, like what's the move here? What's your process for figuring out what the optimal lineups, I should say, you're going to put in are?
Well, I think it's very clear in a tournament like that, the disaster scenario that you have to avoid is a lot of chalk together. Now, the thing I've always struggled with is balancing the equity while still getting a lot of leverage on the field. So there's certain guys that I think have a ton of equity, and it's how much do you play them? You absolutely have to do some contrarian things. So for me, the process is trying to figure out, making sure the lineup has leverage in some capacity, and then balancing, how much you can get certain high equity plays in. And I think the top end is probably the best place to be contrarian. If we know Bryson's going to be 30% in that or 40%, I think it's clearly a fade on Bryson. And trying to find that low owned guy is the challenge. But you're certainly not going to play Sandy Lyle or something like that because he's 1%. You still have to get good golfers in there. So
can you help me with something here then? This is interesting. Sort of, I'm in this pool, right, where you literally just pick 10 golfers, and you get a point basically if your guy is in first, you get 10 points. If he's in second, even tied for second, you get 9, 8, 7. And then I think that the third and fourth day, the points get doubled, right? But, you can't just pick the top 10 guys because it's a fairly sizable pool, right? Because ultimately you're trying to win. So what would you guys' strategy be in this situation?
How many people and what's the payout structure?
It's basically they pay the top, I don't know, I think 5 or 6. It depends on how many total people are in there. And there's probably like 50 people in it or something like that.
So not that many people, but
right. I guess not that many people. Sure.
I mean, I want to say what my instinct would be. I think Peter's probably going to be way sharper on this because he plays much more game theoretical games.
Because
but I want to see if I want to throw something out there. I would say I would go off of sort of like NCAA tournament pool strategy where you're basically going with some chalk, but then also trying to take leverage on somebody that nobody else is going to be on. And if that guy performs well, you're good.
Yeah.
Or a few shots,
fading
right?
someone who's going to be really popular. So like if you knew every single person in the field was going to have Bryson, then you could gain a theoretical edge. Now, you make him the favorite. Obviously, his range of outcomes, he's often in the top 10, but it just depends on how you want to get. So I agree with Rufus. I think you eat some chalk and then you need to find leverage on certain things. Similar to DFS, you have to find some way. And in DFS, the easiest, so the best case scenario in DFS, if we use NFL, the best case scenario is you have like a really screaming great matchup, great price, great value, wide receiver. But the wide receivers have, wider ranges of outcomes. So that wide receiver busts and 60% of the field has them. Fading that player, that's like the easiest way to gain leverage versus the field. So in golf, it's similar. Like if we knew, let's say we thought, and I think this could be the case, Matsuyama is a really interesting golfer this week on DraftKings. His price has moved heavily in the market. He's way cheaper on DraftKings than where he's priced in the betting market. So it's pretty likely, especially in the high stakes stuff, that he'll be really heavily owned. How do you handle someone like Matsuyama? He's going to be 40-50% owned.
That's a good question. I would say fade him.
For your pool, Jeff, I would pick mostly high equity guys, but take a stance on fading some guys that you think for sure everyone else is going to have.
Well, so Bryson seems like the guy, right? Because ultimately he's the guy that probably has, like we said, the highest range of outcomes.
I'm going to push back on that. I'm
not saying it has to be Bryson.
I think
he's high up there.
And I'll be honest, I haven't manually charted 20,000 shots like Joe Pita did to have the shot link data at Augusta National. But my intuition would be that being so long off the tee is actually going to make his floor a lot higher. Like if you're hitting the ball that far, you're going to be in pretty good positions and there isn't that much trouble at Augusta National. Like I almost see it as like his floor is high. And obviously that's not, my numbers show like, yes, he is a high variance player, but I think, and this is, as I said, I can't model him at this course. So this is sort of my theorizing.
67, by the way, Bryson, that's what he said his par is, which makes sense.
I heard someone who was talking to his caddy said his par was 66, but I'm still like, how is that? I don't get that. I mean, I guess the par fives
he's hitting no more than a 7-iron into, and then there's a drivable par 4, which 3, guys have been driving it to the front edge. Bryson's hitting it over the green, which is also a much better place to chip from. And that's the other key is that's hard to model, and that Spieth talked about, and that Bryson's talked about as well. Driving into certain areas gives you angles to the green that are really valuable that you normally don't have. And that's the whole key to Augusta is hitting it in the right spots on the green.
So I've also heard I feel like I've heard narratives on both sides. I've heard the narrative for him that like it's these 3/4 shots are going to be a lot more difficult. Like some of these spots to hit, it's much easier. You won't be able to get enough spin on it from the shorter distance, and it's going to be a lot easier with a more full shot in. Like, I mean, obviously, I don't think Bryson agrees with that, and he's probably smarter than the people talking. I mean, he's smarter than everybody, but
smarter than everybody.
Who's a good leverage guy that you guys would recommend? A couple maybe. That, and obviously, Rufus, this will probably be, outrights, whether you show any value on any of these guys that are on the longer side.
Jose Maria Olazabal. Not really, no. Okay, although I did bet him on a matchup.
I mean, Rufus, this is like people actually want to listen to what you say. Like you brag about how much money you made last weekend, and you tell the whole world we're all free rolling you. So. I mean, tell us who you're gonna be on, or tell us who should be our leverage guys.
Hey, this isn't what I signed up for.
Well, we don't have.
We have an esteemed guest on here for his expertise.
No, you can both tell me. I'm curious about what you both think about who some of the longer shots to play that might be worth a couple nickels on.
Okay, so the long shots. I mean, a lot of the long shot guys that I bet probably aren't guys that are traditionally good course fit here. but have been playing well in general. And honestly, like, aren't traditionally considered high upside, high variance guys, but I just think they're still underpriced. Like a Kevin Na, for example, if you can get him at like 400 to 1.
He said his back's bothering him too, so maybe even a little extra value.
Kevin Na's back's bothering him?
Yeah.
Don't bet on him then.
He said that on Instagram.
Peter, I need to can I consult you before I make any bets to see if people are injured and stuff? Is there any other injuries I need to know about so before I make an ass of myself?
Okay, let's take the injury narrative. I got a guy for you that I think is undervalued in the markets, that I think has a lot of upside, and I think people are tentative to take him, especially.
Oh, I know who it is.
Other guys.
You're going to say Jason Day? Yeah, because
Jason Day,
he's the worst guy to bet on because there's like a 30% chance he withdraws every tournament.
Yeah, and I've been there. Remember at the
Masters? You watch him with the back. Oh, my God. That was such a sweat for me.
Yeah.
But Rufus, what do you price him at in outrights? Because his price has come down.
Yeah, I mean, I have outright bets on Day.
But okay, so let's stay with that thing. I think you can find value. Everyone has a narrative this week, and there are all these narratives, and some of the narratives actually have validity. Course history definitely matters here. And, everyone talks about you can't take a guy's first year at the Masters. That's generally true, but the injury stuff I think is really interesting, and I think Day, who's in that same price range as a Koepka's coming in hot, Patrick Cantlay, who won recently, Tony Fenow, who I think sets up well at this course, Patrick Reed, who's won recently, Bubba Watson, who people are talking about. I think Day gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, and I think people are afraid to take him broadly because of the injury risk. I mean, he withdrew on Sunday at Shadow Creek because of his neck. I mean, and he has fought his body for a long time. So
I saw him at Hakkasan Saturday night. It wasn't his neck.
Jason Day?
I'm just kidding, guys. I haven't been to Vegas.
Yeah, I was like, he was like 5
months.
shots back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
isn't Jason Day? Doesn't Empire Maker think he's the best golfer in the world? I saw someone say that.
He
on
was
Twitter.
high. Empire was very high on Jason Day. He made big bets on Jason Day versus Brooks Koepka going into Sunday of the PGA Championship, I believe.
Yeah,
maybe it was Saturday. Maybe it was after the weekend. Going into the weekend.
I mean, I don't think Day's flying under the radar that much. I mean, he was in contention. He was what? How many? He was like.
Well, Rufus,
he was a stroke back to the lead going into Sunday last week.
Rufus, think about this for a second. You bet a lot on him in outrights. So he was flying under the radar, and so you bet on him, and you knocked his price down.
No, either that or he isn't priced, or I'm not pricing in the injury risk appropriately. But although for outrights, that matters a little less.
Give us some more narratives, Peter.
2 more names that, I love Rufus's opinion, and Jeff, you can judge for yourself on how to handle opposite cases. Jordan Spieth coming in with not the best form. I mean, it's been horrible, but he's showing a little signs of life, just small. Just hasn't been able to hit the ball off the tee, but this is obviously an amazing course for him. So how much do you weight course history for Spieth? I think he's interesting. On the other side, a guy who's playing awesome was Scottie Scheffler, who has a huge pedigree, one of the best talents on the PGA Tour, was playing lights out, top 5 in 3 events in a row, was right there, at the PGA. Then he got COVID and hasn't been quite as good. And it's also his first time at Augusta, which people knock him for. So Scheffler, Spieth, how do you analyze those guys?
So first off, I was typing Scheffler into Google, and did you know that it autofilled Schefflera? There's a plant called a Schefflera. I feel like if Scheffler next Scheffler bet I win, I'm buying one of those plants. With Spieth, signs of life. What trimester are we in here? First trimester? Is he close to birth?
Maybe
still an embryo.
Right after you're I think the pregnancy test is going to come back positive. That's where I think that was Spieth.
Believe it or not, I'm slightly bullish on Spieth here, and I hate saying it. I was trying to figure out a way to make my numbers not like him a little bit. He missed the cut by 1 last week. He missed a 5-footer to miss the cut. So
short putt.
The short putts have always been his bugaboo. When you're having to do things that Sergio emulates later, it's not exactly a good sign. Although Sergio goes, I guess Spieth goes with don't look at the ball. Sergio goes with don't look at anything.
No, don't look at the hole is Spieth's thing.
Right. He doesn't look at the ball. He looks at the hole. Right.
Yeah,
he looks at instead of the ball. But you're right. Spieth has played really, really well in this course in the past. I think he has the best course history of anybody here, actually, relative to his baseline. And I think that's largely because I mean, it's a good fit. I mean, he's not the most accurate guy off the tee. That's his issue. It's the errant drives. And I mean, as long as he doesn't do like a Rory on number 10, I mean, there's, where he hits it into the cabin. I mean, like there's a lot of room to miss.
How about our boy Morikawa?
Oh, so there's a guy that I think no one's going to take in DFS. I'm not that bullish on because he hasn't been playing that great. Also hasn't played, but that could be, Jeff, like, let's say you really hate Morikawa in your numbers. Do you play him in that mega millionaire, knowing he's like 3 or 4%? And probably the answer is yes, but I don't know.
So why? I mean, I would have thought people would have been higher on him.
It's a second shot golf course, and he was second in approach last year behind JT in strokes gained approach.
Where?
No, Morikawa, just strokes gained broadly. If you just strokes gained approach,
you would say. I mean, it feels like everybody says every course is a second shot golf course. I feel like Augusta's like a first shot golf course. It's a
driver's golf course.
It's a long hitters. It's a bombers course. It's a bomber artists course. That's what I'm going to call it.
It's a bomber's course because it makes your second shot that much easier, and there's not that much trouble to go long.
Yeah, but it's also people that are creative. I feel like guys that like Bubba loves it because of it's like a blank canvas for him, and just given the green complexes and stuff. I mean, it's not just like a straightforward hit it to this point. There's creativity involved, and I think that if you look at guys that have traditionally played well here, it's less of these sort of like mechanical guys that are, I feel like, that are just, although I say that and then I'm thinking like, okay, Adam Scott, he looks like he has a picture perfect swing. Justin Rose feels like pretty mechanical, but like Bubba, Phil, not so much. Angel Cabrera, definitely not.
The reason the narrative is for the second shot golf course is because that's what all the golfers say. The golfers say you have to hit it in the right spot. And that's the funny thing is golfers' analysis of how to, do well on a golf course or what is required is different than what Rufus says a lot of times. And Rufus is a big part of setting the market. So that's really interesting. I think people run with what golfers say, and, I don't know how good these golfers are at predicting who's going to play well out of their peers.
Personally, I go with Troy Aikman's advice for how an NFL game is going to play out because, he's been there. He understands the game.
What about Tony Romo?
Nah, who's that guy?
Tony Romo was
he wasn't even drafted. He didn't even go to a Division I college.
He's kind of just become unwatchable to me. He's like,
I thought he was spectacular when he first came out, and lately
he's so hyper now. He's like he's like his own little self. I don't know. It's tough. How about Tiger, guys? What do we think about Tiger this week?
That's the argument that it's a second shot golf course too. Now, I don't agree, but Tiger is clearly what made Tiger so phenomenal. Is, he's the best iron player, best approach player of all time by like an order of magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he did to win in 2019. He was really good, and especially on approach. His irons were great because he wasn't like driving the ball spectacular. He just hit a lot of great second shots.
Yeah, and he wasn't like his putting. He was above average putting, but like, yeah,
he didn't win it with his putter.
No, not at all. He won it. I think he was something. I think Joe Pita said he was like +9 strokes gained on approach for the week, which is
and that's always been. Tiger Woods is like the best guy ever by so much with like a 5 iron in his hand or something.
Okay,
Peter,
here's a question for you then. Wait, both of you guys. Let's say you could be 2 standard deviations, if you could be the best at any particular skill for the week, like number 1 putter in the field in terms of strokes gained, around the green, approach, or off the tee, what would you want to be for this week?
I'd say off the tee. Even though putting, if you look at it, putting's not predictive as much, but the guy who wins the tournament oftentimes is the guy who putted the best.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of luck, right?
Not
off the tee, that's much more skill and
But I'm saying if you already, you don't know what the distribution's going to look like.
If you could guarantee it, I guess I'd take putting. But I think it's close. I think off the tee is probably pretty important.
Jeff, what do you think?
I really don't know. I'm kind of an ignoramus when it comes to this. And like knowing the course and whatnot. And I just think about this from a golfer's perspective. This just everything we've heard, right, is this idea that everyone's just been talking about how this sets up so well for DeChambeau's new game. So to me, that would mean I would lean towards what Peter was saying about off the tee, but putting obviously seems to be like, I don't know. And I guess I don't have a good answer, or at least one that's informed it by any sort of credible opinion.
What's the answer, Rufus?
I don't know. I literally just came up with the question.
I thought you had the answer.
No. I was just kind of
He
curious.
usually has the answer.
I don't know what like at Augusta. I mean, I don't have there's no PGA Tour official shot link data, so I can't tell you what one standard deviation is worth for each.
I got a bet for you, Jeff, but it's kind of like a Biden thing. So there is a market out there for Sandy Lyle to make him miss the cut, and there is a no price available. It's very similar to, I bet Biden to win the popular vote and ended up losing Bitcoin on that bet because Bitcoin appreciated more, and I was laying minus 650. There's a minus 1,100, minus 1,200, minus 1,300. Who knows how much longer it'll last, but that's like borderline free money.
Wait, do you realize that Sandy Lyle the last 2 years has missed the cut by one stroke? Just wanted to put that out there.
What about the years before that?
I don't think he did. I think he missed it by a little bit more there, but
I think he missed it by a lot for a stretch of time.
Yeah, probably. But he gets better with age, just like
he's 62 years old. I mean, Fred Couples certainly can compete at that age. Bernard
Langer is like 62, 1, 4, something like that, and just
he's not Ian Woosnam
going strong.
Sandy Lyle, but I think it's pretty. I don't know. I don't know if you agree, Rufus, but those are the interesting ones to look at for me when you're looking at some of these. There's interesting markets and some of these guys. I mean, there's some amateurs in here. I've seen some stock about that and on Twitter. But I think the old guys, I mean, there's a couple guys who are just drawing dead, basically.
Oh, for sure. But speaking of losing money on Bitcoin, I paid like Empire Maker his money based off, from our first week of the contest, and then last week, and I ended up and I won this past week. But I literally lost $9,500 in the process because of the value of Bitcoin going up so much in between. The Bitcoin I sent him 30,000 in Bitcoin, which would have been worth 39,000 when I got paid 30,000 back.
Can I tell you guys a secret?
Nobody cares.
No.
Oh.
I bought my first Bitcoin ever this week.
Really?
Actually, early.
Now we can get into the pod to talk to us.
Was it a whole Bitcoin?
I bought a few Bitcoin. I won't say exactly how many, but I bought multiple Bitcoin.
What's on that decision? I'm fascinated to.
Because the price was going up and you didn't want to be left out.
What's on this decision?
Just because I wanted to actually not seem like an old man when I talked about it, and I wanted to get into the idea of, and I figure in some of these transactions that we typically are involved in, it's helpful to have Bitcoin. Yeah. So
you wanted
I felt
the sweat.
I should pop my cherry in the Bitcoin world, right?
Bitcoin has a lot of
you're someone that has Mac football in the background. You clearly need a Bitcoin sweat.
There we go. I mean, it is Tuesday and there is college football going on. Okay, can I ask a question on Morikawa? This is a real question. The narrative on Morikawa going into certainly the PGA was that this is the guy, at that point he'd missed probably one cut, 2 cuts in his life, best ball striker, blah, blah, blah.
He's like a Furyk or a Kuchar, huh?
What's that?
I thought you were going to go with just the consistency.
Well, but then all of a sudden he wins the PGA and then he seems to have disappeared and there's no more narrative on him. Now he hasn't been playing well. What do we think something happened? Do we think what do we think happened with him? Do we have any theories? Is there any narrative?
Did you see him at Hakkasan?
I did not see him at Hakkasan. He's a nice Asian boy we're docile at the core. So no, I think he's fine. I don't think he was at Hakkasan.
Okay, so results since the PGA. Missed the cut at the Northern Trust, tied for 20 BMW, tied for 7th Tour Championship just with the 72-hole score. Miscut US Open, miscut Shriners, T12, T50. Yeah, that's definitely a progression. Given the one missed cut.
Surprising too, given the West Coast. He was talking. He lives in Vegas now. He, West.
Did you see him? Did you play with him at Summit?
I did not play with him at Summit.
BZ played with them. BZ and Funk played with them at Summit the morning that I was like sleeping in because we were at Hakkasan the night before for a long time. So
that would have been fun to see Morikawa play. I mean, he has got a majestic swing and huge fan. I think he's right there with JT is one of my just favorite.
They said he was like one of the nicest guys.
Of course, you can see he's the way he talks. He's so smart and humble and confident. He just seems like the total package. But it was surprising to me if you're going to go into the narrative stuff. You know, the West Coast is where he's played all of this golf. I mean, he has so much experience there, trending, can sleep in his own bed, and it just kind of fell off. But it's a smaller sample, and clearly he could still win. I mean, his putter is, 2021 season, he's basically dead last in strokes gained putting, which has always been the weakness. He's good on approach, but he's not elite like he was in the 2020 season. So we'll see. And off the tee, honestly, which, he was really good at finding fairways, getting a lot of strokes off the tee relative to his distance. That's fallen off a bit too. So just kind of some slippage in some key things. And if you putt really badly, you're going to have bad results.
I think it's also hard if you're not a really long hitter to be consistently elite. I mean, you look at the guys that haven't been especially long, just career-wise, and it seems like they do have some ups and downs because it just means you have to be so much more perfect. You can't be a little bit off. The margin for error is smaller. I mean, look at Steve Stricker in the 2000s when he completely fell off a cliff and then he got it back. I mean, Furyk had some bumps. Kuchar, very consistent player, lost it, had to remake his swing. I mean, I think that there's...
Can I ask you guys a question then on this? This is interesting, right? Because golf is a sport, it seems like, where we have people that emerge, they play well, they win something big, then they kind of disappear. And it isn't like other team sports where the opponents can influence what you do. Like, people figure out Lamar Jackson at some level, or people figure out a certain pitcher and, but like in golf, you have got a guy like Molinari, right? Who maybe a year ago was, Rufus, you never really liked him that much, but certainly he was.
My fades were Molinari and Schauffele. I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just interesting. What do you think it is about golf that makes people emerge and then sort of disappear? Is it just a sport that there is a lot of recency bias to it? I mean, it seems like of all the sports you model, Rufus, recency matters the most in golf compared to other sports. So is there something about it where there is some nature of recency to it that's predictive, and that once you lose it, you lose it?
I mean, I think anybody that's played golf could tell you that too. You find something, you have a swing thought that works for a little while, and then suddenly it stops working. And obviously these are professionals and they're way better, but I still think that they're...
I can't imagine it's the same. I don't know.
Look, I think they're...
But even, I think there's a lot of merit to what Rufus just said, and it's obviously in tighter ranges, but played a ton of golf, get somewhat decent, then I go back to sucking, and I get on the TrackMan and I see my swing, and it's like, wow, I was really inside for a second, now I'm kind of coming over the top. And for these guys, even that just fractional thing where they, feel like they're swinging the same way, but something minor changed, now their distribution of their shots, I mean, that's what makes the pros the best, is their misses are the best. You judge golfers based on, their misses basically. So Rahm's the best golfer in the world right now. His range of, he has a shank last week, but for the most part, his shot distribution is so good. And if you just get a little bit worse fractionally and something happens, that really changes your distributions. And it's such a narrow margin for these guys. I mean, the guys on the Korn Ferry Tour are amazing golfers, unbelievable golfers. And to Rufus's point, I think you brought up a good point about distance. Unless you have some skill that's very consistent and being really long, that would be one of them. It's very hard to sustain an edge.
Okay. We got 9 minutes left. What else do you guys, is there anything else on the Masters that you want to give these people that wait all year to listen to Rufus talk to us about the Masters? Any matchups?
I'll say the guy who my biggest position's on, since I've already filled them, but I still think there's outright positions worth playing there. And that's Decky. And personally, I feel like I'm on every matchup with him. Although, which I'm sure people...
Matsuyama you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm sure people that are following the golf market aren't surprised at that, given that the price. those prices have moved up in a significant way since they opened. But I think, he played really well last week. And this is just from watching the tournament last week. And this is not involved in my modeling, but he actually looked comfortable putting. I was watching the last 5 holes. I was going back and forth between red zone and the golf because I had a guy in the hunt, the Mexican Carlos Ortiz. And I was like, Matsuyama's not supposed to look this confident over 10-foot putts. He was hitting them with authority, and he wasn't, so if Matsuyama can putt, watch out. He's played well here in the past. I don't know. I think I might have, I don't remember if it was last year that I had him and he started really slow and then kind of came back. But
the narrative on him would be a lot different too. Keep in mind, he got totally screwed with COVID. He was the leader by a mile after round 1 of the Players' Championship.
Yeah.
And he's redone his swing, doesn't have the same dramatic pause. And yeah, he is a ball striking machine as usual. The putter's still kind of the bugaboo, but that putter gets going. And one thing about Matsuyama that I don't think many people realize, and it's the same for Rory McIlroy, but really for Matsuyama, he is elite around the green. Strokes gained 2019 season, around the green, he was 3rd. Last year, he was 2nd strokes gained around the green. This year, he's 14th. People think, Matsuyama, great ball striker, bad short game. Great ball striker, really good short game, bad
putter. It's kind of like Byung-Hyun Ahn. I think people don't realize that, Ben Ahn is also a really, really good player around the greens, but he can't putt. And even makes fun of himself for it. But what did he have that wedge that said, what was it? Benny Ahn putts he has glass eyes or something.
Yeah, he's the best. Best follow.
Yeah, exactly. But
what else do you got,
no. You're talking about around the green. I have Matsuyama as the number 1 guy in the field in around the green going into Augusta. Number 2 is Ben Ahn. So, I feel like those 2 guys are not guys you'd associate with that at all.
Because they just bad short game because they can't putt.
And then after that, who do you think is number 3?
Maybe Rahm.
No, JT. I have Rahm number 20 there.
Wow.
But they're not Rahm. I have Rahm 0.18 strokes worse per round forecasted than Matsuyama. And I'm not. It's a difference, but it's not a huge difference. And Rahm makes up for it with the fact that Rahm, that is his worst skill.
It's true.
But he's still number 20 in the field. That should so. Other guys. You want another Asian guy? I think I see some upside in Siwoo Kim. He's a guy that's totally a lottery ticket, but he's
talk about good distributions for an outright though.
Yes, he's the perfect outright distribution guy. That's what you want, right? You want guys that can miss big. Let's see. I'm looking for especially high variance guys. I don't like Scheffler probably as much as you do, Peter. I grabbed him somewhere at 80 to 1. I think that was over in Europe.
I don't necessarily like him. I think he's really interesting. High pedigree, tons of talent, was playing great coming down, but how much do you knock him for no history at Augusta?
I'll tell you who I don't like that I think, but I've heard other people I respect actually like is Kokrak. I think Kokrak, if you look at why first off, he's coming off of a win at Shadow Creek where he played lights out on the green. He's been putting lights out recently. That's been something that he struggled with most of his career. But Shadow Creek is it's not anything like Augusta. And he has not been, I think everybody knows that putting, there's a lot of randomness to putting. And so I'm okay with fading a guy that's been just in my getting lucky. I think there's obviously some skill there's a lot of skill to putting, and there's certain, I'm sure if I could if I had data on how confident a guy feels putting the ball, then I could, get a much better sense of predicting putting, but I can't. And so maybe Kokrak's found something and turned the corner like Molinari did back in 2018. He'd been a bad putter and he worked with some coach and ended up turning around his putting. But yeah, I don't love Kokrak at the prices available. I'm making maybe 125 to 1 or something. Yeah.
I got two other. I'll throw out a couple guys that I think are really interesting, but might be chalky for DFS and could change the narrative as well. Tony Finau, that guy has more power than anyone, including Bryson, if he wants to.
Can I ask, Peter, do you think we'll see him like go Bryson on some of these holes?
If there's anyone who wants to, like he can get above 200 already without training for it, doing it. He's got the most raw power in the tank. So he's interesting to me. And then Bubba Watson, I know the problem is he's now kind of expensive in the markets. It's moved, but I think Bubba has a real shot to win. He has been playing unbelievable golf, just putting really bad, and that's the recipe I want. And obviously has the history at Augusta.
That's true. I'm with you on that. Although the weather forecast scares me for him because you know how finicky he is, and it's supposed to rain on Thursday. I still remember, he's like water on the club face, bro. Water on the club face. He finds things need to be perfect for him, and if they aren't, or at least
he's
in the past,
blaming everyone else.
Hey, so last question on this, and then we got to wrap this up. Is the starting times the reason that someone like DJ is 20-1 to win the first round versus, he's not the favorite to win the first round, and Bryson is by far at 13-1.
Well, Bryson's the favorite in the market to win outright, isn't he?
Yeah, but it's really close between him and DeChambeau, right? You're going where Bryson is plus 705 and DJ's plus 750 to win it on Chris, whereas the first round, the difference is much bigger, right?
So I don't really honestly see a huge weather angle. Although rain is such a big wild card because in my data, I unfortunately don't have, I don't have shot times for everything. I mean, I do with some shot link stuff, but like I haven't mapped it out to exactly what the weather was at that time. I know you got to run in sec, Jeff, but I mean,
you guys can keep going without me if you want to keep riffing, and then Rufus, you can do a little.
I'll do the intro. You let me do the intro, Jeff?
All right, I'm dropping off. Good luck this weekend. Rufus, maybe you and I will tweet out some football picks since we didn't have a chance to talk about them.
Congrats on the Bitcoin, Jeff.
Thanks. It's gone up since I got it, so I'm pretty excited.
Wait, what did you get it? What price did you buy at?
I bought it at like 14.5 or something like that. So.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Sharp. Can we play Sharp versus Square, Jeff Ma?
Shout out to Jeff Ma too. I listen to every Invest Like the Best podcast. Great sponsorship for
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I got to go do my day job, guys.
Microsoft sponsors that now? That's awesome.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Good stuff. Later, Jeff. Now that our guest is gone. With rain though, it is a wild card because if you have historical data, you can see it was heavy rain at this point, but you can't I don't know necessarily what the effect was on the course, if there was a sub-air system, if play was halted for a little bit. So it's one of those things where obviously you'd rather not be out there in the rain, but you want to be getting a course that's soft from rain. It's better if you play right after the rain ends, but at the same time, maybe that's not the case at Augusta, given you have the sub-air system in the greens.
Yeah, so soft greens is normally a huge advantage, right? Because then you can stick the ball. But if the sub-air system takes that out, I had one question that we didn't get to that I think is really relevant. First Masters in November, obviously the course looks different. It's still the same course. Do you do anything different with that? Because certain people are saying how you should maybe weight course history a little less. I don't necessarily agree with that at all, but there is that narrative going around. What's your thought?
That's a good point. I think I can see sort of erring to that side. I think that there will be some things that are different, but I'm not someone that is in the business of, I don't feel qualified to sort of guess what they're going to be. So I'm basically going to say, people can speculate that it'll play such and such way or some other way. And I'm kind of going to go with how it's played in the past. And
how much would, I guess we won't see November again, so it's not really relevant to do. I mean, I guess a better question is, how do you project that you're going to weight this year's Masters for April?
A good amount still, I would think. I mean, look, are the weather conditions that different? That's a good question.
No, I'm just saying, we've never had that before where you have Masters, it's still a long time, but 6 months versus a year is different.
Well, I'm just happy that we get 2 Masters in a 5-month stretch. Or
the best stretch of golf we're going to have. It's fantastic.
Yeah. But I mean, Peter, what you ask is kind of similar to saying, well, how do you weight previous U.S. Opens in predicting the U.S. Open? Well, you have Rory winning at Congressional where the course was super wet and played super long and the greens were soft. that's, or I should say maybe how do you weight that and predict if predicting another US Open at Congressional? Like conditions aren't going to be the same. So you can go through, I guess, year by year and say, okay, these are what the conditions were. Let's look at years where it's similar. Because if you think about it, it's not just the time of year, it's the weather that affects the course, and not just the weather the day out, but the weather leading up to it. So, I'm honest. I'm pretty neutral on it though. I don't think the weather is I think the weather is within the normal bounds, at least to my knowledge, of what it is Masters week in April. I mean, I know people are saying it's wetter. It's wetter. The course is going to play longer. But, Matsuyama's plenty long. He's not as long as Bryson, but McIlroy's long. Rambo's long. Kevin Na's not long, but my 400 to 1 bet is basically already shot, you're telling me. So
I'll make a final point on narratives that I believe in that I think you can't quantify, but in my mind, I bumped them up. John Rahm making 2 hole-in-ones in the practice rounds and apparently playing great. They beat, whatever. It's a 2-man gambling thing, but it just feels like that has to like give him some confidence. Which I know Rahm's always confident, but don't you know? Like for me, at least in my life, there's certain times where you just get on a roll with certain things, and like really good things seem to happen, and it seems like more really good things seem to happen until they don't. But
and you just know it. I'm looking through my positions. Could you
imagine Rahm just like convincing himself like it's destiny that I win this thing now? Like,
yeah, more than most guys, maybe. I mean, yeah,
2 hole-in-ones in 1 week. I mean, that's freaking insane, dude.
It is. What are the odds of a third? Is he playing the par 3 contest tomorrow?
Yeah. What are the odds of a third?
He's got to, because he's,
Does the Masters have more?
I'm looking, I kind of hope you're right, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't have any matchup position on or against Rahm. I have very little outright exposure. I'm like, if Rahm, when he finally does it, I want it to be a week where I feel like I have much, much less on Rahm.
You've been heavily invested in Rahm for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he's been an investment that's paid off overall, but, it always feels like, I mean, it's like Jim Furyk, right? I was heavily invested in Jim Furyk for a long, long time, and Jim Furyk made me a lot of money overall, but he also could have made me a lot more if he didn't stop finishing during second place.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's going to be a fascinating week, but I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. And and good luck this week with the DFS and betting if you're doing that. And hopefully DeChambeau doesn't run roughshod over the field.
Yeah. Good luck to you, Rufus, and the 7 listeners of Bet the Process pod.
Thanks a lot. On a special Masters version of the Bet the Process, Jeff lets me do the intro myself, and we have acclaimed DFS champion Peter Jennings on to cover the Masters. We go through players, Bryson, what he's going to do, theories, narratives, picks, you name it. It's one of my favorite podcasts of the year. So with that, let's start the process.